Our staff will respond to any questions and jump on as requested. You'll all see the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. That's how we indicate our desire to enter into a speaking opportunity. So just touch on that if you want to say something, and the clerk will take that down when you're finished. We have a rule around quorum. If we fail to achieve quorum or if we get kicked off, we'll be holding it for 15 minutes and then we'd be adjourned. We're not going to vote using the electronic method. We're going to vote just by a show of hand like this. And the clerk will call the question and indicate who's in favor and who's not. I think we're ready to go now. Are we okay for quorum, Mel?
Yeah, we are okay for quorum. I would just ask again that any voting members, please do turn on your camera just so we can count that you're here. Thank you.
Right. And for those organizations that are having more than one person attending, you do have one voting member. I would ask that you determine who that is in advance and try not to vote twice. We probably won't have an opportunity to allow the second person to speak today, but if we're looking like lots of time and the second person from your organization wants to speak, we'll try and accommodate. We do everything by motion, seconding, discussion, and voting. Any member of this committee may move or second a resolution. It's perfectly okay. You don't have to leave that to one of the members of City Council. So feel free to do that. There's no extra charge, okay, for moving or seconding an item. So what I'm going to ask now is for somebody to move all the items on our agenda, please. Could I get a mover? Thank you, Councillor Van Tilburg. And now a seconder for that same item. And I see the mayor is seconding. Thank you, Mayor. So we're going to now jump in with the first item on our agenda. We're going to have discussion on 4.1, which is the Economic Development, Tourism, Community Programs Update. Who's providing us with the verbal update on this item? This is ordinarily Councillor Utley's lead. Is there a member of staff that's going to do that today? Hello, Aaron.
Hi, Councillor. So Aaron Wallace, I'm with the city. I'm Director of Community Programs. Great to see so many old friends on the call and future friends, I'm sure as well. So I'll give you
your volume is really low.
Can you hear me now, sir?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, quick update on the working group, and happy to take any questions that you have as I go through it. So really, the intent of this working group is to look at what activities and programs and events can happen in the downtown that support the economics of the downtown, bring people into the downtown, either as consumers or tourists or visitors or what have you. So what we're going to do to start is, obviously the municipality has a big role in that. There's lots of initiatives currently happening, like the Economic Recovery Task Force work, the culture plan, some of the stuff we do in Harmony Square. So what we're currently doing is bring all of that into an inventory to talk about, things like our downtown master plan and the things the city, capital C city, are currently doing to support that concept. But obviously we know that many people around this table and in the broader community have lots of work happening that supports that goal as well. So what we're going to do as a working group is try to bring together through our task force communications, but also discussion at the working group, bring together all of the current and planned initiatives that are going to support that goal of economic development in the downtown. And in doing so, we know people are going to have some really great ideas that they've seen in other communities or that they've planned out or things they'd like to try. And so we're going to have a list of things we're currently doing or planning to doing. We're going to have a list of things that we think would really support that goal. And then as a working group, we'll come up with some recommendations about what else we can do or how we can strengthen some of the current initiatives and bring that back to the task force as a recommendation from the working group. So I'll pause there for any questions and happy to answer any.
Oh, I guess I have to press the unmute button. Aaron, I don't see any questions forthcoming. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Maybe what I'll do, if you just forgive me scrolling through my notes, I will give the dates of the upcoming working group meetings. I know there'll be some discussion around who might be interested in that. Of course, on the spot, I've lost that place in the document. I apologize, sir.
That's quite okay. We can have that circulated electronically, Aaron, to the members. That will
Okay.
save everyone's hands from having to write that down and then lose notes like I do.
We certainly will.
If that's okay.
Very good.
All
Absolutely.
right, so I don't see anything further on this item. So what I'm going to add, oh, sorry, Councillor Wall, go ahead, please.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, I don't want to go too much into the weeds here, but I want to give just one example. And then I'm just kind of wondering if you could tell me like how that specific example would be handled. And then obviously with the other partners here, maybe it'll spark some other conversation. So when COVID hit, one of the things was that a lot of business owners spent a ton of money building patios or inquiring about companies to kind of build patios for them. And then we had to do all sorts of different things with our bylaws to allow patios, whether they wanted to set up on the parking lot or they wanted to set up on the sidewalk. And then after all this happened, they were thinking about all the money that they invested into doing this, and then the laws weren't going to keep up and it wasn't going to end up staying that way. And that could be potentially damaging to businesses as a part of the economic recovery. And I know that this has a lot to do with, you know, how we're going to boost the economy in the downtown. So I understand that this is going to be this subcommittee is going to be just members from this committee, but how are we getting input from the actual business owners that are affected?
So thank you. Through the chair, I'll give kind of a high level response, but I think the question about how we collect that information from the broader community might be more of a Maria question if she's on the call. But that is exactly right, Councillor. The intent of this working group is to hear that exactly. There might be things the municipality can do in terms of bylaws or changes we can make to support economic development. All that kind of entire spectrum from, you know, how we support it, what the bylaw looks like, all of those pieces. In terms of how we collecting that information, if the chair will allow me, I might pause to see if Maria's on the call to speak to that element of it.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Aaron. Good afternoon, members of the task force. Through the chair, I'm Maria Vasaki, the Director of Communications and Community Engagement. Absolutely do have a response to that question, Councillor Wall. I wonder if it would be more helpful, though, after I actually present the update, because that's included in my update in terms of how the community will be engaged, and it's a couple of items away. So if we could do it that way, I think it would make more sense.
Thank you, Maria. Yes, we'll do that, Councillor Vice Chair Wall. I mean, and Councillor Wall, I think we'll also be thinking about maybe including current planning and bylaw with respect to some of the issues that the folks doing the economic development piece will be looking at. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Joshua.
That's okay. May I continue?
Absolutely.
Awesome. And then I want to talk about tourism. So obviously we're talking about promoting our downtown core, which many organizations that are members of this task force are doing extraordinarily well at and have in the past as well. I'm just wondering if we're going to be looking at, and I know this is a weird thing to say, but forgive me, I'm a millennial, social media influencers. Recently, tourism should be lauded for an incredible campaign that they did with some social media influencers who came to Brantford and were promoting and talking about how grand Brantford was as a whole, and Brant County and the whole community that we call home. And I'm wondering if we're going to be looking at best practices when it comes to that, because you know what, if you go on social media, you might not hear great things about downtown, but if you actually go downtown and you see the heritage and the history and the culture and the people and the music and the restaurants, those are the things that are easily highlighted by anybody who knows what they're doing. And I'm just kind of curious, maybe some perspective from tourism on how this subsection of this group are going to be latching on to positive social media influence and using that to counter the negative social media influence.
That's an excellent idea, Councillor, and I'm sure the clerk's department has captured that comment as well. And that is, your clock has just run out, Councillor. Thank you very much. Who's that lady whose name is Brantford panelist that just waved at me?
Is that me? Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
Dan?
Go
Is
ahead.
that me?
Yeah, go
Dan?
ahead. Yes.
Sorry, it's Carrie Korfman with the BIA. I didn't realize I didn't change my name.
That's okay, just teasing. Did you miss the intro Carrie?
Yes, because an invite wasn't sent to the BIA.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Very sorry about that. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a raise hand button.
Yes.
When you want to jump in the queue, just press that, and then I can see the hand come up in your screen, and I won't overlook you again. Okay. So you've got the floor. Go ahead, Carrie.
All right. Sorry, I had to connect with my phone. I had to get the only link I received was on my phone from Joshua. Thank you. I just want to go on a higher level and wonder why this committee is worrying about economic development and tourism. I thought we were going to look at the high level issues downtown, like homelessness, social issues, and security. To me, we used to have an awesome economic development task force that has been disbanded. A group of developers and builders in the city and others that are motivated to work with the city. We also had a tourism board that was the same. To me, I know the mayor did not want to set up this committee, and it was because it was going to take up so much staff time. And so far, that's all that's taken up is staff and councillors' time. To me, you're not using the resources in the city and people in the city, like the tourism committee, like economic development, like Annette at the BIA office. She's a valuable resource, and you could call her. Actually, she's already made a list of all the service providers in the city, so no one has to waste their time doing things like that. It can be done by people that are already doing it, sort of thing. That's just my comment on the economic development and tourism. I really think we should be focusing on the safety, security, housing, and the social issues going on.
Thank you for that, Carrie. And I'll just offer a bit of comment because you do raise some good points. We are taking a complete 360 look at everything that's going on downtown, and all the areas of concern that you've highlighted were also the concerns of the municipal council that created the committee. So we are looking at crime, we are looking at community supports, we're looking at safety and security, we're engaging the community, and we're going to be utilizing the talents of some of the folks that you mentioned. What you're looking at today is the core committee, but we're going to be looking at all sorts of providers and all sorts of contributors within the community as well, Carrie, to get opinions. We are trying to introduce a broad range of cures that are going to fix what ails us, hopefully, and we hope to have this completed by the end of 2021. So the things that you've talked about, they're exactly the things that we're going to be doing, and they're exactly the people that we're going to be reaching out to get some expert opinion and some advice and some guidance. So we're going to be, that's going to be a part of our community engagement program, is making sure that we get to all these folks. And of course, a lot of the people at the table here have those types of contacts that you can go to. For instance, you mentioned the ED at the BIA, Carrie, and she is quite invaluable in terms of I just had a chat with her about a week ago about some of these issues. So I hope that answers a bit of your concern. But we are going to get there, and we're going to do all the things that you want to see us do, but we're looking at a broader picture as well. But thanks for that, Carrie, okay?
Okay. Just on another note, just my thought was that they would maybe be able to handle some of the shorter term goals. This committee, from what I see, is handling longer term goals.
Yeah, okay.
So just a thought.
Yeah,
okay.
Good thought at that. Thank you very much. Any other comment on this 4.1 item, guys? Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to close off debate, and we're going to vote on this item. And our action item on this item is simply to receive the report that we've been given. We're not committing any additional staff time or anything to what's before us today, and that subcommittee will continue its work, and we'll begin to do some engagement as well. So let me call on you now to vote. Raise your hand, please, if you're in favor of receiving the report that we've just been given. Thank you very much, and that carries. Is there anybody that doesn't want to receive the report that would like to vote in the negative? Okay, that looks to be unanimous. Thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to item 4.2, which is the community support updates. We've already got all the items moved and seconded and on the floor for discussion. Now, is somebody going to give us a verbal update on this item?
So through the chair, Marlene Miranda, General Manager of Community Services and Social Development. I'll start, and then Councillor Vanderstelp may want to add some commentary. So we did have our first meeting with the partners that were identified, and that'll stay nimble and flexible, and we can add more partners or participants as the need is determined. We did have some regrets for that meeting, so we weren't a full house just due to vacation and scheduling, but we have planned another meeting in September. The group is pulling together currently an inventory of the current services to assist future service mapping. We're also working on a term of reference. We're also considering research project on reasonable service level standards. To ensure that the services levels that we are appropriate for the local service needs. The group is also very mindful of many other tables that are working on many of these similar issues across our multiple sectors, and we'll be reaching out to them and collaborating with them and ensuring that we're not duplicating our efforts and utilizing the great work that's already happening across many sectors. And I'll pause with that and happy to take any questions from the group.
Thank you, Marlene. Councillor Vanderstelp, did you want to add anything to that at this point?
Not at this point, Mr. Chair. I think the other councillors do have questions, though.
Yes, I see that. I just thought I'd go to you first. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Van Tilburg, you have the floor. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I see we've done an inventory of community partners and services and hopefully assets. So what I have a question. Do we know what public restroom facilities, washrooms that we have currently available in the downtown that are open and usable, or that are closed and could be opened if we could provide security for them?
So through the chair, we are aware of some that are open and some that remain closed. And we can circulate a list to the task force if that's helpful. I don't know them all off the top of my head. I do know that the library is open. I know, and Raylyn may be able to add the hours of operations. I also know that the Harmony Square is currently closed, but we are working on that as well. So happy to provide more detailed information, but we are cognizant of the challenges with bathrooms.
Yeah, if you could send a list of what's open, what's not open, what the reasons for the restrictions are, because right now we do have an issue in the downtown with restroom facilities and the need for them. And I'm hoping that this could be on our short-term list of quick fixes if possible, and amongst the longer things that the task force will be taking on. So I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Van Tilburg, did you also want staff to consider the appropriateness of perhaps portable washroom facilities downtown?
I was going to see what the list was first, and then yes, consider that. I mean, everything has I think there might be security issues with portable washrooms, and I happen to be on the security portion. And so the idea is to coordinate and come to a solution that would, that is the best one for providing those services downtown in a safe manner.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Wall, you have the floor. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair McCreary. I want to talk about Ontario 211, and I just want to talk about it very quickly. But I think that if you stop 10 people on the street and you said, what's Ontario 211, 9 out of 10 would likely say, I have no idea. They'd probably pull out their smartphone and Google it, which is, thank goodness for the age of technology. But allow me, if I may, find programs and services in your community. Abuse, community programs, disabilities, emergencies, employment, family services, food, francophones, government, healthcare, homelessness, housing, income support, Indigenous peoples, LGBTQ+, mental health, addictions, newcomers, older adults and youth. And essentially, this platform, which I've never used, essentially says if you dial 211 from a phone, cell phone, or you Google 211, that they'll connect you with local services. Is this true? And I'm not asking you to answer that question. What I'm saying is that, if I was a vulnerable member of our community and I was seeking support, I don't think that my first guess would be to pick up my device and press 211. I remember when I first got elected, I worked with the neighborhood associations with our social services staff to get a postcard that was being handed out by the BDOT team. It was being handed out by counselors during ward meetings, and it was like bylaw, emergency service, mental health, homelessness, etc. So if you said to me, as a representative of the community, if somebody in our community needed help, there should just be a 3-digit number that they can dial and they would immediately get connected with support and services. I'd say that's a brilliant idea. Let's do everything that we can to implement it, but it sounds like it already exists. So what I want to know, and what I'm hoping is going to come out of this, is that how can we have this one-stop shop that if you're somebody in our community, no matter your station in life, you need help, the city and all of its partners, all the people that are here today, are forthcoming with their information. And the last thing I'll add is that the number one thing that I hear from vulnerable people who reach out to me in my role as counselor is that it is too difficult to get help. So it might be super easy to have a 211 number, but when they call and they get put on hold, or they get called and treated like a number, or they get called and disregarded, or don't get an appointment in time, or something happens, there, forgive me, are too many individuals falling through the crack. The barrier to entry for help is too hard. I hope that this subcommittee will not spend too much of its time figuring out what the services are, but figure out how to make the services easier to access. Because that barrier of entry is the most difficult part. Because I assure you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the help is out there. It is just too hard to get. And thank you.
Councillor, thank you for that. Councillor Vanderstel, go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, in addition to Marlene's comments about the sub working group being both nimble and flexible, what I'd like to add into that is it's also invitational. And to put a really fine point on it, thank you. If you have been contributing for an extended period of time to this river of suffering that seems to be going through our urban core and surrounding areas, thank you for your contributions. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your continuing gifts. Thank you for working with the community agencies, organizations, and helping groups, religious organizations, religious affiliated organizations. Thank you for your continued help, your organized help, your ongoing help in an effort to try to stem this tide. There, as you probably already know, there have been 323 deaths, opioid-related deaths, in the last 2 years. You compare that to the 22 horribly unfortunate COVID deaths that we've gone through during this pandemic. This is our Brantford pandemic, 323 people. It is horrid what's happening out there right now. And thank you. The reason I say it's invitational is I'm certain that we can, on a weekly basis, do a better job of making sure that we're connecting people to the right services at the right time that are still available in the right place with the right people. I'm sure we can do that, and we can do that just as well as we did this exercise in Hamilton when I worked there. But it's extremely important that we acknowledge the hard work and the efforts of the people that go into alleviating this difficult situation we find ourselves in the core. As far as the further objectives of our working group, our community working group goes, what I'm seeing is a continued dedicated response from a number of different people toward that effect. For Councillor Wall's comments, toward the effect of creating a streamlined and perhaps a bit more robust a list of readily available help and resources. So if I haven't already said it, I mean, for the 8 people watching now, 26 people in the room, and hopefully when we talk about this on council, there will be more people watching and a history of people watching. For the record, thank you to all of those individuals who have been acknowledged and those who haven't. If you're coming to the core and you're driving one of the black cars, the blue cars, or the green cars, or the black SUV, you're wrecking the core. You are contributing to the use and abuse of drugs in the core. You're contributing to the pain and suffering that people are going through in the core, and you're profiting by your actions. You're profiting from other people's suffering. You're not welcome here. But if you're kind and caring and helpful, you are welcome here, and you're welcome on that subcommittee too. You can join at any time. Correct, Councillor McCurry?
As usual, Councillor Vanderstel. Yes, thank you. Paul, you have the floor. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge one of the points that co-chair Mr. Wall, Councillor Wall, had from the last meeting. The communications piece, I think it fits in here with the community engagement piece. As the federal election is coming into its final couple of weeks here, the chamber has hosted a couple of events. One was the elected or the candidates debate, hosted by Brant.1. But recently we also recorded, they haven't gone to air yet, they'll probably air on the weekend, a series of individual sit downs with each one of the federal candidates for the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, NDP, Green, and PPC. And across the entire political spectrum, each one of those, each one of those candidates acknowledged the seriousness of the opioid epidemic. And 4 of the candidates explicitly, when put to question, committed their personal time to this task force to participate. And that being Larry Brock for the Conservatives, Alison McDonald for the Liberals, Adrian Roberts for the NDP, and Carly Sordas for the Green Party. So on that piece, I just want to assure the members here on this committee and anyone watching that at the national level, this has garnered attention, and we have commitments from the major candidates here to be a part personally of this task force. Just wanted to share that.
That's excellent news. Thank you very much, Paul. And I hope staff will make a note of that. And if we could accumulate the contact info for those 4 folks, we can be in touch with them following the outcome on September 20th, and hopefully they'll all still be interested in participating. I would encourage all of you members to not be shy about speaking during our meetings. I know we city councilors tend to hog the speaking times, but I wasn't referring to any city councilor present, Councillor Vanderstel. I was referring to the other ones that aren't part of this committee, of course. So please, your opinions are always welcome and important, and don't be shy about speaking up and participating. Okay. Having said that, I don't see any further. Oh, Heidi, please go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor McCreary. And my question, I wasn't actually sure when to ask it. So if this is out of order, please let me know and direct me to a different time in the meeting on the agenda. My question is actually about the whole in some ways, and about the work of the task forces. And so I'll just stop there before and see whether this is the time, because it's directed toward the community supports subgroup, but it's also applicable to all 3.
That's perfectly okay, Heidi. You go right ahead.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So, and in thinking about the work of this task force, and of course then the subgroups, one of the things that has been occurring to me repeatedly as we welcome our students back, which we've done this week, and we're working hard in the development and reanimation of One Market in conjunction with the other programs, and of course our partners with Conestoga. One of the things that, and the Laurier Brantford YMCA, one of the things that we've been talking about at Laurier specifically is for all 3 of these headings, right? The economic development, tourism, the community supports, as well as the safety and security. all three of them not only, of course, are interconnected, but we need to be thinking, I think, both short-term and long-term, right? So what are the low-hanging fruits? I'm thinking about some of the things that even come up today in this meeting about, bylaw and what do we do about the restaurants and the idea of perhaps continuing on some of these patio things, which of course enliven the downtown, et cetera, right? So there's the low-hanging fruit, but then of course there's those really deep, complicated problems that take years, right, to be working on and need to be come at from various agencies, both government and partners and all the rest. So for each of these three things, is it the case, and of course this is a bit of a leading question, so I apologize, but is it the case that we will be in each of these three working groups, not only working on the short-term low-hanging fruit, right, to be fixing something, perhaps making something a little better, as well as those longer-term problems? And if so, can we think about Band-Aid versus root cause as well for each of these things? So what will help at least the appearance of it, and what will actually get to something that will maybe someday actually solve the problem? So again, apologies for a leading question, but I would love to see, in fact, all of the really engaged, all of us in some ways, be somehow part of all of those working groups to make this happen. And I know certainly it will be the case that Lori would be happy to be on all three because all three affect us. And in fact, I can go on, but I'll stop there. There I am, done.
Well said, Heidi, and you're absolutely correct. This group is going to deliver up a final report to council at some point in time. I think it's at the end of the year. But one of the goals that the council members of the committee have also laid out for ourselves is if we've got something that's timely or urgent, or as you identified, a short-term solution, we can bring that forward well in advance. We can come to council following any one of our meetings and present a suggestion, a recommendation based on what you folks think is the appropriate thing to do at the appropriate time. So as I said earlier, if there are, don't be afraid to jump in. This isn't a rigid process. This is more of a holistic process. And anything that you've got that you want to have the group talk about that's timely, that's time sensitive, by all means, jump in and let's talk about those items, preferably at the subcommittee level, and then that can be introduced here rather than taking the time of the whole group, taking the time rather of the smaller group who've expressed the interest in that segment of our work. So does that help, Heidi?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you, Councillor McCray. And it's also about the directions given to, so what are the actual goals, I think, for the, and I'm sure this has already been worked out, but I think that's fantastic. I'm sure that we'll all see it, but being really clear for those task force, for the working groups, I should say, as to, because we can get so bogged down. I can just imagine, right? It's going to be so easy to get bogged down into, well, I can imagine this little thing will work and this little thing will work, but then what about that? But what about the 5-year, the 3 to 5 year plan? Yep. So I just want to make sure that that the time and the energy of this amazing group of people, I think, and leads to the kind of transformation that will make a tremendous difference, not just for the downtown, but of course the whole city and the whole region. So, and our partners beyond the region. So thanks. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anything further, folks? Okay, then we're going to go to the question on this one. And the question is that the update will be received. And so now I'm going to ask for you all to raise your hands if you're in agreement with receiving this update that's before us today. And I'm going to be bold and presume that that was unanimous. Okay, so that was item number 2. We're going to now move on to item 4.3, which is the safety and security update. And can I ask who's going to be giving us the overview and the update on this item?
So through the chair, Marlene Miranda again, General Manager, Community Services and Social Development. Staff did meet yesterday with Councillor Van Tilburg and Chief Davis just to start planning on our first meeting. And we identified some initial participants and started to work on some next steps. Invites will go out shortly and hopefully we'll have a meeting in short order. And like the other groups, we are pulling together a current inventory of all the services and resources with safety and security. And we'll be pulling that together to help inform our next steps as we move forward. And with that, I'll just stop for any questions that the group may have.
Thank you, Marlene. Councillor Van Tilburg, is there anything you want to add to that off the top?
If people wish to ask questions first, then I will follow up with comments after people have engaged with Marlene.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Councillor Wall, go ahead, please.
Questions and statements, I'm not sure they're going to blend together, but I feel like I've just repeated myself on this so many different times in so many different groups, but considering we are getting public engagement and many people are watching this meeting, I want to kind of say it again. So when it comes to safety and security in Brantford, I think ultimately it falls upon who do you call? And the first instinct, I think, for many people is you would call Brantford Police. And I know that we have a representative from the police here today, but it's not just the police. Not every single matter needs a police officer to show up. And there are many other elements and kind of identifiers on that to kind of who you would call. And we talked about this a lot when Eagle Place was going through some pretty serious issues last year. And we identified kind of how it works. So it's like at the top is the police. Then under the police, it would be you would call into the city and it might be a bylaw officer that responds, or if it's city property in the downtown core, it could be one of the security guards that you would call in, or if it was a private enterprise, there might be private security that's working. Then you have things like the constable that works with Laurier in the downtown core. And then below that, we now have a citizens on patrol, which is backup, which is volunteer citizens who work with Brantford Police to get called out. And then below that, you have Neighborhood Watch, which is something that is very successful now in Eagle Place. And I'd like to see roll out in the downtown core more with partnerships with businesses and people who live in the core, because a successful Neighborhood Watch program is a proven deterrent for making our community safer. And then ultimately at the lowest level is that you just have people calling in. So I spoke with numerous constituents over the last couple of months, and I'm just going to say it here so that it's on the record, and I just want it loud and clear. There's the old adage about the lemonade stand. And if you ask your mom and dad for $10 to get a lemonade stand and you only spend $9, you don't get $9, or you don't get $10 the next time you run the lemonade stand. They give you $9 because that's how much you used. If people, members of this community, are not reporting crime, if they're not reporting crime, then the numbers don't add up when the police are trying to get the support that they need to be able to do their job. And a healthy neighborhood watch and active and engaged members of the community reporting crime is one of the most effective tools that we can tell the community, is that it's not okay to look the other way. And I hear all the time from members of the community, well, I call the police and maybe they didn't come in a reasonable amount of time, which is hard when the system is overwhelmed. Or I hear, I call and it doesn't matter. I'm telling you right now, it matters. We need, through this community safety, not only do people need to know who to call, but we need to work with people to encourage them to call. And I think that, I hope that this working group will, it's about communication, is I guess what I'm trying to ramble on about here. Because I feel like if the security calls aren't being reported to the police and they're not communicating with one another, then the numbers don't add up. And if the neighborhood watch calls aren't being reported to the police, then the numbers don't add up. Every call that's coming in has to be recorded, documented, and used. Because at the end of the day, there are several sources of funding for our police department. It doesn't all fall onto the back of the municipal taxpayer. And ultimately, the police get funding based on their needs. And if crime is going unreported, stolen lawnmowers, lawn furniture, vandalism, rocks being thrown, whatever it might be. So I just want to work on communication, and I want to work on community engagement, agency. This is our downtown. Let's take it back. And the best way to do that is by communicating with one another and making sure that there is a record of it.
Well said, Councillor. Thank you. Thank you very much. That is the end of your 4-minute speaking opportunity. I don't know if I reminded committee members of that, but there is a 4-minute speaking opportunity that pertains to any municipal committee. Councillor Van Tolber, did you want to jump in now?
Yes, certainly. This whole task force has been created, not just this subcommittee, but I mean this entire endeavor has been a result of activities of the Downtown BIA. And the reason that this has come before us is because without safety and security, you can't have business in the downtown. And businesses that have been there for 35, 45 years are leaving. Or they're making contacts to us councillors that they have never ever had to make before, in that the safety and the security has exceeded anything that they have ever seen before in their entire times in the downtown. So this task force, the Safety and Security Task Force, takes on a very serious role. And quite frankly, and that's the proper word of it, meeting with Chief Davis, Police Chief Davis yesterday, was a very frank and open discussion. And I appreciate that. So we don't have to beat around the bush on the things that we're trying to achieve. And he made it very clear that the police can't solve anything. But right now, in the short term, from my opinion, is that what we're trying to do is organize our policing services, bringing on board special constables, coordinating with Laurier Security, coordinating with the city's private security firms, and also with any other security firms that exist for other businesses and operations in the downtown, so that we can all be operating off of one page in making our downtown community safe. But we have a problem, and I think that problem is why we are where we are today. And that is that the ability for relief in the downtown, and quite frankly in the extended community, but this task force is based on the downtown, is that they're not getting relief from the activities of the bad actors in the downtown. And so the aspect is, how does one address this issue? Where do people go? And we know that we are dealing with, from safety and security points, with mental health addiction issues, criminal issues, violent activities. That's probably one of the biggest rises against all members of the downtown public. So how do we address these things if we're not able to get results further on down the road? If we need to send people for referrals, but there's no take up, no place to go on the referrals. And I think that was something that Councillor Wall mentioned in the previous thing. Where do people go? How do they get that help? People are calling out for help. So it's about, how do we build, not in just the short term when we get our special constables, and how we move people along and create an area of safety. But what do we need to do in order to make sure that we have the proper facilities for people to go to in order to get either the proper treatment they need or the proper holding cell that they belong to? Because right now, with the way bail hearings happen, people are immediately back on the streets. And as we've heard with situations in the downtown, somebody can go and accost someone at a bank and be at that same bank within 2 hours. And this is a problem where the police say, we can't solve it all. We can go out, we can investigate, we can take, but we can't do the whole thing. So from our perspective is to put together a program, and I hope I'm not running out of time, if I can just get this in, to put together a program that we identify what the needs are for the community in order to give people the places to go, be that a former Birch Correctional type facility that's local, that's a holding area for those that are creating violent criminal activities, or if they're having a crisis and it's something that can't be handled through a regular referral and are not-for-profits here, that they have a facility to go to where they are protected from the elements of that they are being victimized by within the community in the downtown, and they are put into a safe place because they need a safe place as much as the businesses need a safe place. If you don't have safety and security, we don't have anything. So that is kind of where the focus was. I was very happy to see that the chief was in agreement with regards to those long-term plans. And that will take the coordination of our task force later when we meet with the previous task force. So that's it in a nutshell. And I hope that is as clear as mud for us.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Jacinda, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor McCreary. I would just like to share a comment around safety and security as it relates to Conestoga College, and I know there will be some similarities with Laurier as well. The COVID impact, so removing so many students from in-person studies in the downtown core. I know Laurier has been impacted, but Conestoga certainly has as well. We are cautiously optimistic for a significant increase in January, but just understanding the impact of having fewer people in the core in that way can have a huge impact on safety and security. And unfortunately, we've seen the negative impacts on that as well with some of our buildings that are not nearly as well utilized. The only other comment I'll make from a student and staff perspective at the college is our relationship with the police department and with security and special constable with Laurier has been very positive. The response has been very good. And our students and staff have been very safe, but there's also a difference between safety statistics and how people feel. So do people feel safe in the downtown core? And that's a tougher one to address. And I think as we see more activity and more students coming back to the core, I think and hope that there'll be a very positive impact there as well. Thank you.
An excellent observation. Thanks, Jacinda. Yeah. Any other comments, guys? Okay, then we'll repeat our vote now on this item to receive the update that we've got before us today and that we've heard from staff and council. Could I ask you to raise your hand if you're voting in favor of receiving this report? And that carries. Thank you very much. And now we're going to move on to item 4.4, which is the community engagement campaign. And if Maria would like to go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Councillor, through you. Further to the communications plan that was approved at the last meeting of the task force, today I'd like to provide members with more details regarding the stakeholder engagement piece of that campaign to ensure that meaningful community engagement opportunities are provided to help inform the task force action plan. The community engagement report before you today recommends implementation of the use of the city's Let's Talk Brantford online engagement platform beginning the week of September 13th, 2021, to offer a series of convenient virtual opportunities for the public at large to provide feedback regarding this priority initiative. To ensure that all those who want to provide feedback can be included in this process, the consultation plan also includes 3 in-person public consultation opportunities and 3 virtual meeting opportunities throughout the course of the engagement period over the next several weeks. Right now, communications and community engagement staff are working really closely with our colleagues in community services and social development to promote stakeholder involvement in this entire engagement process. Engagement will be conducted along the lines of how the working groups have been formed and will include all community stakeholders based on the 3 key topic areas: support programming, business success, and safety and security. So there will be very much targeted promotion to those stakeholders that can provide feedback from a subject expert point of view within those 3 subject areas. But there will also be casting a wider net so that the community at large can participate in both the virtual meetings as well as the online platform at Let's Talk Brantford. That's a quick update on the report that you have before you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Maria, for that. Mayor Davis, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. When myself and councillors Van Tilborg and Councillor Wall put together the terms of reference for this task force at a time when the city had the capacity to deal with this after dealing with COVID and economic development and housing task forces, we thought it was critical that we have this public input component, because although we each have ideas, this is the opportunity for the community to provide us with their ideas. And I'm sure there's ideas out there that none of us have thought of, or should, if we've thought of them, we need to reconsider them with input from the public. So my question to you, Maria, is how are we going to really promote this so that, especially the in-person, and how are we going to deal with that in terms of COVID? And what I'm talking about is members of the public or representatives from various groups that want to come in person and talk to the various subcommittees. How's that going to be managed, and how are we going to promote that?
Thanks for the question, Mayor Davis, through the chair. The in-person meetings will be targeted more to the subject expert stakeholders so that we can keep those numbers manageable. Of course, in a perfect non-COVID world, we would open all of those in-person meetings up to everyone in the community. But the in-person meetings will be very subject expert stakeholder focused, and they will be held in venues where proper distancing can take place. So that's how we'll handle the in-person meetings. The virtual meetings will be open to the community at large, so that as many people who want to participate can participate. They will operate much like a webinar series does, whereby we will ask people to register to speak the same way that that the process works now if you would like to speak as a delegation to council. People can absolutely participate that way. We'll give them enough lead time. We'll promote it across all of the city's social media channels to make sure that that those who want an opportunity to speak are provided that opportunity. I'm also going to ask members of this committee to promote it amongst your networks, and I'll ask the working groups to do the same. What we have done in the past that works is we provide a script. My team will provide a script to members of the committee, of the task force, as well as the working group, that they can send to their networks and that they can post on their own social media feeds so that we can get the word out as widely as possible.
And what is the tentative timing on that? Like, how soon is that going to happen?
So with approval of the report today, that's going to start being implemented next week. So anticipating that it would get approved, plans are already well underway.
Okay. And my last question is for you, Mr. Chair. So we do have the three subgroups: economic development, security, and social supports. So for the committee members themselves, how should we allocate our time in terms of what do we do if we want to participate or focus on one of the three subgroups, and who should be in attendance at these virtual, in attendance, I mean from the task force, at the various public meetings? There's going to be quite a few of them. I suspect probably, well, three subgroups, two meetings, at least six. What is the thinking there in terms of organizing?
Thank you for asking that question, Mayor, and I'll indicate that your time is up. We will be communicating that shortly. Beth, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Councillor McCurry. And I'm speaking with permission of Dr. Northwood, and she's agreed to forego her next turn if that's needed. Just wanted to flag a couple of things. I think this is stakeholder engagement is huge. And I think that effective decisions and outcomes as we go forward will be a blend of the sort of analysis we're doing of the current state of things, the feedback from people living it, because I do agree that individuals, our user experience design experts could tell you that individuals can often flag and create solutions themselves when they've had the frustrating experience. But also, I wonder about subject matter experts, because in all of the topics that we're looking at, we, and I suspect Conestoga and others, have actual subject matter experts who may be able to participate formally or informally in this process, because chances are they've already read all the literature and maybe even done some studies on some of these things to understand what's effective and ineffective. Because to point to some earlier remarks made today, what we want are solutions, right? We don't want to move our problems around different corners and keep them with us. We want to actually have a way out of the problems. So I think that if that's something there's an appetite for, then we would be happy to connect with the right people on our end, and I suspect others would as well. And just also I can't overstate the importance of the work that Maria and her team would be doing on this, because the other piece we have to be really mindful of is reputation. I think Jacinda alluded to perceptions of safety versus reality. And the way that we speak about the downtown, there was moral panic among some people when folks had to go downtown for different services this past year. And yet a year ago, we would have been pushing seniors in a bus to head down to the Sanderson Center, not a year and a half. So, keeping in check the way we ourselves speak about the core, because I don't want, we do have problems. We do need to address them. But I also don't think that the sky has fallen completely on all of this. There's so much wonderful work happening downtown, so many wonderful businesses. And as we start to come out of the pandemic, only more good things to come. So I just to say that, I know Maria and her team always do great work. And I think that it's critical to what we're doing here.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. And your comment about engaging folks that have experience in helping resolve these problems is bang on, and we certainly encourage all the members to invite those kinds of folks to participate in the consultation period. Councillor Wall, you're next. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair McCreary. Okay, I think if you ask nearly anybody who calls Brantford home, they have an opinion about the downtown. And some people get hung up on the past, decisions that were made before. Some people are hung up on the now, and some people are really rose-colored glasses and optimistic about where the future is going to go. I like to think of myself as the one who's optimistic about where we're going to go, because I'm committed to a successful and prosperous and healthy and happy downtown. But as a representative of the people, I got to tell you, I am unbelievably interested in the opinions that people have about the downtown, because I think that there is no right or wrong. I think it is a matter of taking it all and picking the best ideas and bringing them to life. And my only concern with this campaign is that we're not going to get the buy-in that I would personally like to see. And I don't have the answer, but I do have a couple of questions and then one suggestion. So my first is a question about, will there be a promotional marketing budget for this campaign? Will we be doing boosted advertisements through social media, through things like Google, potential stuff popping up on the YouTube, articles popping up when you're reading a Globe and Mail article, and a little thing saying, City of Brantford wants your opinions about the downtown, like the same way you would market something, I suppose. So the first is there going to be a paid campaign, a marketing campaign about, we want your opinion on how to make downtown great? Second,
Councilor, let's deal with them one at a time.
No, I'll run out of time. I'm running out of time.
It's okay.
They're writing
okay.
my questions down. The
It's
next
okay.
question, print and mail. We just did this big power merger everyone's talking about, right? And there was something sent out in everyone's power bill about how this was happening. Doesn't the City of Brantford send out mail? Can we send out something to somebody, every tax-paying member of this community or every residential address, saying, hey, we want your opinions on how to make downtown great? And then my suggestion is, I would really like to see a round 2. I think this is great. I think the amount of time it's a little quick if you ask me, but I know we have to have a kind of a quicker turnaround, but I guarantee you dollars to donuts that once this campaign is done, people are like, oh, I didn't even know. I found out about it afterwards, which is a legitimate response when you get asked a question like this. And I would like to see a round 2. Absolutely I want all those people who didn't have a chance to get that second chance. I don't necessarily know that I want that advertiser is going to be around too, because then people will wait for the second round, but I think you get the gist. So that's my entire speaking opportunity. And if I can get any answers, please.
Councillor, you left 1 minute and 9 seconds on the table. I'll remind members that council did not endow the committee with a budget. So Maria will be able to provide what she can provide within her global budget. Maria, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Chair McCreary. Through you to the councillor, all excellent suggestions, councillor. I do have in a communications and community engagement budget, we do have what I would say is a modest reserve to support task force initiatives that do not have assigned or allocated budgets. So absolutely, we did plan to boost ads on social media and to do some digital advertising using Google and some of the other platforms that you mentioned. So we can do that. So that will definitely be part of this phase of engagement. In terms of the bill insert, yes, we do send out a lot of mail from the city, and we do have a monthly bill insert opportunity because that goes to nearly 30,000 households in the city. The printing is the highest cost associated with that particular vehicle of promotion. So for example, inserts that we've done in the past typically range around $3,500 just for the printing, we wouldn't charge obviously for staff's time to actually develop the material. So that would be cost prohibitive based on the fact that we don't have an allocation for this task force. But should that be something that became available to us, we could absolutely integrate that within this campaign.
Maria, thank you. And Councillor Wall, I might suggest to you that if that's something you'd like to see happen, you could very well come to Committee of the Whole with a notice of motion for funding. Okay?
You're 2 steps ahead of me there.
Yeah,
that's good.
Okay.
I want to, what about the round two?
Sorry, Councillor, I've got other folks in the queue ahead of you. I'll come back. Carrie, you're up next, please.
Yes, hello, thank you. I just wanted to, I see it's called Communication and Community Engagement. So I just wanted to mention a couple of things on the communication part. I would hope maybe that City Hall will look through some of the communication that's fallen through the cracks during the pandemic, as highlighted in the expositor today. The building report is no longer being published. That's something that's a valuable tool used by investors and developers and real estate agents to decide whether to invest in the downtown or the city itself. I know downtown is supposed to be a priority for council, and yet the BIA's minutes no longer go to council. I don't know, that stopped a few months ago. I don't know why. I don't know why council wouldn't want to see our minutes. There's no chance, if anything comes up at our meetings, for it to be brought up through one of our councillors at council like it used to be able to be. We used to be able to highlight our minutes and pull them aside and talk about an issue. And right now, council isn't even seeing what our downtown issues are on a monthly basis. And also just that the main thing we need right now is support for our small businesses. They've been through a tough time through the pandemic, of course, and then with all the social issues on top of that, some extra communications on their behalf would be nice.
Thank you for that, Carrie. If you could have your folks forward your BIA reports to our clerk, at the least it would be recorded in the clerk's communications report, which council receives and which most members of council actually do read. So I would suggest that you start doing that again, Carrie. Perhaps it's fallen off the table somehow, and we can certainly put it back on the table if you want to follow up on that. I know we are working on the building reports again, and I know the answer to the question, but I can't remember what the heck it is. But it's got to do with us transitioning from something to something else, okay? And hopefully that'll be back up and running shortly, okay? David, you have the floor.
Thank you, Councilor McCreary. I just wanted to follow up on the opportunity to pump some additional marketing dollars through both for this initiative, well, primarily for this initiative, but also where the chamber may be able to assist. Not entirely public just yet as we're putting the background into place, but we do have through a couple of other through a different channel a substantial amount of marketing dollars to spend in the community over the next 5 months or so. So pleased to be a part of that discussion in terms of promoting, and it will be promoting a shop local type of campaign for the community. So maybe able to portion off some of those to assist in getting the word out of people to come downtown and be engaged in a renewal or a revitalization piece to this. So just keep the chamber in the loop on that conversation.
That's excellent news, David, and I suspect you'll probably have Councillor Wall at your doorstep tomorrow.
Very good.
Any additional comment, guys? Maria, if you're still there, I have a suggestion I'd like to make. We're beginning the in-person support programming and the business success. That's coming prior to the federal election. And I suspect there will be a number of people in the community that are quite involved with the federal election up until the 20th who might like to participate. And I'd like to suggest, Maria, if we could move both of those items to the 21st of September or a later date. If you could manage to reschedule those, I think it would probably allow more people to participate that would like to be in on it.
Through you, very good point, Councillor. We can absolutely make that accommodation.
Yeah, so we will consider those two dates to be changed, and you can let us know what the replacement dates will be, Maria, if you wouldn't mind.
Will do.
And perhaps give some thought to Councillor Wall's notice of motion and resolution will be coming to council, and if you could provide the committee and Councillor Wall in particular with a dollar estimate that you'd require, okay?
I'll do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Wall, you have the floor, my friend.
I put down my hand and unmute the mic, sorry. I just wanted to follow up on the opportunity to do a round two for the community engagement. And then the other thing, I'm a big proponent of the neighborhood associations and then the neighborhood association. I'm just thinking that, yes, I understand that there is a downtown central neighborhood association, which of course we're going to communicate with, but every neighborhood in this city has an investment in the downtown. And they already have these incredibly active individuals who are, really great at connecting with their neighborhoods and the moms and dads and aunts and uncles and grandparents and so on and so forth that live in their community. And I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on how we're going to use and utilize those neighborhood associations to get the word out about this. So round two and neighborhood associations.
Through the chair, I should have mentioned the neighborhood associations. Thank you for raising, Councillor Wall. They are just an automatic go-to in terms of all of our community engagement outreach. So we have staff that liaise with them, our event staff, recreation staff, who have very, very good relationships with the chairs of all of those associations. We will absolutely be using their networks to get the word out to the neighborhood associations to participate in both the online and the in-person opportunities. So yes, that will absolutely be done as part of our regular protocol. In terms of a phase two, I would suggest that once the action plan has been written, that we go back out to the community and we say, thank you for your input. It has informed this action plan. Tell us what you think about the action plan and how you can be involved. I'd like to give that a little bit more thought, but just off the top of my head, I think that might be appropriate timing for a second outreach.
Okay. And then just elaborating on what Councillor McCurry said about potentially giving you a budget for this, like this campaign would be over before I could even move a motion at council and get you allocated funds. So is there an opportunity just to add an additional month right now? Like, could we not do it for 2 months instead of just one? And if that's the will of this task force?
Through the chair, I would certainly take that direction and do that. I might defer to my colleague Marlene to come in on that. I think the timing was associated with the mandate of the committee to deliver a plan by a certain time, and I believe that that's happening, within this calendar year. And so, because the engagement is such an important piece to inform the action plan, I don't know that there's enough lead time in there, but oh, there's Marlene. I'll let her speak to it.
So thank you, Maria. Through the chair, that's correct. We were hoping to do the engagement in mid to late September and into October, because we really are looking at that engagement and the feedback that we receive to inform the next steps and how we move forward with the 3 working groups. So we'd like to do that up front, recognizing that we only have 4 months to pull the action plan together. So that was the thought, but happy to entertain guidance and direction from the task force.
Thank you, Councillor. May I suggest, Councillor Wall, that if you can spend some time in the next couple of days, you could have this to Committee of the Whole Tuesday, September the 14th, and with the blessing of the mayor and the committee, you could 2/3 it onto the agenda that night as a resolution, and this committee could have its instruction from council on that day to enable the expenditure. Okay, so do your consultation and see if you can make it happen on Tuesday. Make sense? Okay. Folks, any other comments on the community engagement program? Seeing none, let me ask you then, if you're in favor of receiving the report, to please raise your hand. And that also carries. Now, let me go back to my agenda here. What remains for us today is the approval of the minutes. And like the other items, it's already been moved and seconded. Are there any corrections to the minutes or omissions to the minutes that you see? Seeing none, I'm going to ask you again to vote on this resolution. If you're in favor, please raise your hand. And the minutes carry. Thank you very much. We don't have any notice of motion today. We don't have any further business. Let me just once more thank you all so very much for your time and your participation and your energy and your interest in this issue. If things come to you between meetings, feel free to email Councillor Wall and me, or if you're or one of the chairs, Councillor Vanderstel, Councillor Van Tilburg. Councillor Rutley's away again for another week, I believe, in Britain, having a well-earned vacation. So if there's anything else that occurs to you, just fire it off to us and we'll channel it through. And otherwise, thank you very much again for today, and I'll bid you farewell.